I got a bit overexcited with this one, actually. I don't know whether this joke actually translates. Best 4 hours of my life spent. So yeah, today's been really great. Thank you for hosting us today. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a bit like group therapy. And I'm the only person here stopping you lot from going to the bar. So I'll keep this quick. The really nice thing about going last is you just get to steal content from all the other speakers. So this is the 7 deadly sins of beginner-friendly, open, banking, self-documented APIs. The story of continuous experiments, failure, and dreadful results. No, that's not. So this is a talk called DocOps, Engineering Great Documentation. So first off, I should probably start by explaining what is DocOps. And to do that, I'll just play this little clip for you.
Competent your, I like to call them DocOps. So instead of DevOps, they're engineers that are responsible for maintaining your documentation tooling. How good is your DocOps?
So this is a term that Jared came up with in the Fourth Right to Doc podcast. If you're not subscribed, I highly recommend that you do. And I heard this shortly after joining Nexmo, and it was really kind of the first time that I ever heard a label that kind of described what I do. Everyone else was technical writers as far as I knew. So I mainly do the engineering aspect of our documentation, and I leave things like correcting my missing question mark to our technical writer. And I do that at a company called Nexmo. So Nexmo, they're a cloud communications company. They basically put a nice RESTful interface on top of sending and receiving SMS and making and receiving phone calls. And over the last year, I've been working on documentation and building out this platform called Nexmo Developer. It's a fairly typical documentation site where everything is organized by product and by kind of content type. So we've got our overviews here and our building blocks. So this is our Node Sender code example here, our API references, and tutorials. And this has been built out over the last year by myself and co-worker, technical writer Tom Morris. We've had a huge amount of help from our DevRel team as well. They've been contributing a lot of code examples and a lot of project knowledge as well. And around the time that I joined Nexmo, we were kind of really struggling to keep up with some of the documentation requirements. And I think this looks like a fairly typical relationship that a technical writer has with their product team. And documenting a product really relies on a really great relationship with these people. And this works well for many companies, but we kind of found this doesn't really scale to 6, 7, or 8 products. So, as engineers, as owners of docs, we need to make sure that other people can contribute to our documentation whilst keeping the quality high, and we don't always need to be gatekeepers. So coming from an engineering background, I wanted to apply some of the things that I love and apply it to documentation and to build some tools and some processes and find a way of giving docs back to other people. Because everybody has kind of a unique way that they can contribute to documentation. Our engineers, they work in code, so they have the most complete and technical understanding of how our API behaves. Our product owners know the product, its requirements the best, and what's best for customers' needs. Our technical writer, they should be focused on the quality, readability, making sure that the documentation is accessible to both new and experienced engineers. And our customers, it's an unfortunate fact that they're often the first ones to spot bugs. There are thousands of them, there are only a handful of us. So allowing them to contribute is really great. And when they contact support, we can make sure that the commonly reported issues are also going back in. And lastly, you. So everything that I'm talking about today is open source. So we kind of built the platform. We'd love for you guys to use it, and in turn, maybe you'll contribute back and we'll make our kind of ecosystem a bit better. So I'm primarily going to talk about these 5 things: open source, tooling, contribution guides, automation, and docs like code. So first of all, the most obvious is open source. Open source is really about making sure that we're removing barriers. because we've got so much more to gain. And by putting up walls, like nobody can get in there. You know, it's also really great for telling your team that you're allowed to play around with this stuff, because it's just out there for everyone to anyway. So we need to make sure we're providing the right sort of resources to do this. Things like our README and our code of conduct and contributing guides, they're really helpful for encouraging collaboration and making sure that the project's appropriately licensed so that other people can take the code base and apply it to their products. And also issuing pull request templates cut down on the overhead when you get submissions or you get issues raised, you can get straight to the point with the details. And this has started to have a positive impact on our documentation. We've got a long way to come, but so far we've had 17 commits from just over 1,500 changes, over 22 contributors. And just for transparency, this does include some of my colleagues, but these are people who previously would have never contributed to documentation. And I think it would be great to see this number increase, and we're always kind of looking at ways to support contributors even more. My second item is around tooling, and I'm going to talk about the powerful tools that we use. So we use a mix of Ruby on Rails and Markdown. And Ruby on Rails is a bit of an odd choice for documentation platforms, at least I think. I'm not spoken to anyone else who does this. Whereas most people can use tools like Jekyll and Hexo and Sphinx. We've opted to use a framework. And the reason we've done that is it's very unassuming about what we're trying to achieve. Building the things that allow us to do the documentation has a little bit of upfront investment at the start, but these tools allow us to say yes. So on our community site, we've got community Slack, and allowing people just to sign up straight from there, and this just goes off straight to the Slack API, is just really great to have that as kind of one developer experience. And it's just great being able to say, yes, I can do that. We've got this feedback mechanism, so up here, this is on the bottom of every page. It goes onto our stats dashboard, and it also points to, or it sends messages into our Slack channel so that we can address issues within minutes. Great, got that. And we talked about things like internationalization, and it's really great to say yes and just say our technology is not holding us back here. And my favorite of all is code examples. Being able to customize these code examples for people's credentials so that they're signed into the system. And this is probably my favorite because of this GIF, actually. That's just a thing of beauty. And these things, as well as some of the other things we're doing, they require a database, authentication, and sessions, and user input, and a few of our tools require workers. And I think it would become really easy to start over-engineering this stuff, like this past the Butler robot here. So even though we've got these powerful tools, we need to also make sure these tools are intuitive. So we've got a database, but we don't need to use that database for all of our content. That would be absurd. We just have them on this, just like you would on a static build site. So we have a documentation directory, it's full of Markdown files, that defines the structure of the navigation and whatnot. And we use Markdown, or at least Markdown with some extra special magic. The reason we use that is it's really easy to understand, so that makes it accessible to a lot of people. It's really popular. Most of our customers are using Markdown already. It's readable by both machines and people, and it's powerful, or at least it can be. GitHub kind of extended Markdown a little bit in terms of adding syntax highlighting, the task lists and tables, and lots of things that we use on a daily basis in GitHub and our gists and our issues. And I wanted something that was like this, but for documentation. So I set out to extend Markdown with middleware and add some things like sequence diagrams and tagged content. And the way that I approach this is to extend Markdown, but also keep the intuitiveness that we really kind of love from it. So using a pipeline is a bit like this. You get your raw Markdown file straight off the disk from the left here, and then you modify it in a way, and then you pass that whole modified response onto the next filter. And the benefit of this is you can encapsulate your filters to have a single responsibility, whilst also building on some of the filters that you've used in the past. And at the end, it spits out your content. So we go through Markdown to HTML through 22 of these filters. So we start off straight off the disk, and we make 15 modifications to the Markdown file. The 16th modification actually converts it from Markdown to HTML. And with that kind of structure that we've got in HTML, we can then perform another 6 modifications. So to give you an idea what some of these look like, I'll pick a few of them out. So our first one is probably the most boring, but the easiest to grasp, is our front matter filter. So we start off with a document like this. We consume this front matter here within our controllers. We use that to define the title and its position in our navigation. But if we were to pass that to our Markdown renderer, we'd end up with that being rendered to the HTML. We don't want that. So our first filter is really quite simple. It grabs that little bit, and using this regex, looks for the pattern at the start of the document, and it replaces it with an empty string, and then passes the whole document minus the front matter onto the next filter that can then build upon that. Slightly more interesting is this tooltips filter. So this tooltips filter basically looks like how tooltips, I would imagine, would look if they were natively supported in Markdown. So we just use this little caret symbol here, and then put our content within these rounded brackets here. And this is, again, the filter that we use to actually grab that pattern and change it into a span element with the content in this data attribute, and this little bit of text is more goes in between span tags. And these two examples use regex. You don't have to use regex, it just happens to be the examples that I do. It just takes an input, modifies it in a way, spits out an output. You can do whatever you want in between. And to the user, this ends up looking like this. And to a technical writer, it's really easy to add this content without loading all your Markdown files with HTML. And the third one is tabbed content. So this is kind of a style that we use for more complicated plugins. So we always use this code fence here, and then have a plugin name, and then in between it's always YAML. And different plugins take different options. So this tabbed content takes either a source or a config option to configure itself. In this case, we're providing a source directory. So this directory example style guide tabbed content contains these 3 Markdown files: Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie.md. And these all have their own front matter, their own Markdown as well, and that all kind of recursively gets rendered. And using this far more involved filter here that basically builds out all the necessary divs and the tabs and sorts it by the internal front matter, it spits out this. Just a very simple container which contains 3 tabs. And our technical writer can just stick some files in a directory and then use this little syntax and gets a nice output like this. So these really fall into 3 categories. The first is implicit, second is extended, and the third is plugin. So the implicit ones are things that the technical writer doesn't have to even think about, they just happen for free. And they're things like this heading here. So we give this heading an ID of its parameterized content, and we also inject this little icon here so that the user can click it and then get back to a specific heading. You don't have to add that in at all. And external links. I found it really annoying in Markdown that in the documentation that I migrated over, we had loads and loads and loads of HTML links in our documentation just because somebody wanted to do target blank. That's the only way of doing it. So this just looks at all the links and it says, are you off-site? And if you are off-site, then inject the little off-site icon here and make it target blank. Extended ones are a bit like the tooltips that I showed you a minute ago. So they're things that look like Markdown features, but they're kind of things that we brought to the table. So that includes this collapsible content here, where you just left a line with pipes, much like you do with block quotes and the angle brackets. You've also got these JS sequence diagrams, being able to include those in and have those generated from code. And labels. Labels are just just bits of text surrounded by square brackets. So in the documentation or in the raw markdown file, they just look like labels. And lastly, plugins. So plugins are a lot more, they're more for block elements. And this example that I've got here is a screenshot. And this screenshot's generated from this script that we've got that goes into the site. It logs in, it goes through to the page, it scrolls down and it captures an area. And even the blurring there, that isn't something I've added to hide my API key and secret. That's part of the script. It actually adds a CSS filter blur to it. It takes the picture and then saves it to disk. And it uses the MP5 hash, or sorry, SHA hash of the image, so that if it's not changed, nothing ends up going in our code base. It doesn't produce any diff in our Git history. And you might think this all has a bit of a toll on performance. It doesn't really, it's just basic text manipulation. This is the render time of all of our pages. We're seeing an average 40 milliseconds render time, but we also do partial level caching. So this only ever gets rendered once, and then we cache it unless the user's logged in and we're doing the API key stuff. And also, all of these have been fixed. So this is kind of misleading. We're actually a lot quicker than this. Next is contribution guides. So contribution guides are really essential in making sure that people can contribute confidently to your platform. And this is great because building this stuff isn't that difficult, but maintaining it really is hard. And if we can make contributions as easy as possible, the maintenance becomes a lot easier. So we have a whole section dedicated to contributions in our site. So starting off with the style guide, this covers everything from your basic markdown, as well as our kind of custom components as well. So we've got our collapsible content here. And this is kind of just a working document that just shows you how to use this stuff, and you can play around with it and see how it kind of affects the rendered page. We've got our screenshot stuff here. And we've also got things like our contributing code examples. So these are the constants that we use to make sure that we're being consistent enough that we can actually swap out these variables. Making sure that examples aren't too long. And this is our write the docs page, which has all of the things like phone numbers, even though we're a telco. We need to make examples look like examples. Our structure, so we have these content types here that fall into these categories, and these go into in depth, so our overviews, our guides, our building blocks, and lastly our tutorials. And this just gives everyone confidence to be able to contribute, and it allows our team members just to come in and not have to log me on Slack. Basically, I just don't like talking to people, that's the problem. And the next thing is around automation. So automation is all about just making sure you're not repeating things. You could be putting your effort better elsewhere. And this includes things like code examples, screenshots, link testing, and something we're investigating, spelling and grammar checking, making sure we've got all that stuff automated frees us up to focus on things that are important. So I'm just going to talk just about one of these, the code examples. So all of our code examples live in their own repos. We have quick sub-repos across these 6 languages, and the code goes into there, and we pull the code from these repos into our documentation platform. And a good example is like our JavaScript. Our JavaScript examples, we recently changed from being var to using const and let, just follow best practice. And having this sort of automation allowed us to make that change really easily. So anytime one of these repos are pushed to, it triggers through webhooks Travis build. And Travis basically just grabs all of the markdown files and it renders them all, saves them to disk, and then it takes the changes and then does the same task again, except to a different directory. It then just compares the files across those 2 directories, and if and only if there are changes to the documentation, so maybe you change the file that isn't used by the documentation platform, nothing will happen. But if it is, this diff gets picked up and it creates a pull request straight into Nextmode Developer with the pages that have been affected and HTML diff of what's changed. And my last section is docs like code. So this has been talked about a little bit today. And I think docs like code is really great for highly technical documentation. So in the case of our API pages, we use OpenAPI 3 to generate these. This is a custom parser in UI because as much as I love Swagger and trying UI, it's not very user-friendly, I don't think. And so this is a really great way of kind of giving tooling back to the engineers so that we can just write these definitions and then they can maintain it going forward. They can test their API against these Swagger definitions, and our library maintainers can actually generate their libraries from them potentially in the future. And this is all rendered from this document. You've seen about 4 or 5 of these today, so I won't dwell on that. But docs like code is also about using basically engineering practices and applying those to the way that we work in documentation. And it's things like using Git and GitHub with pull request reviews and documenting REST APIs, as I briefly just spoke about, and continuous integration and automation. And these are things that can really help you accelerate your documentation and be a lot more iterative. So in summary, open source. Don't put barriers in front of your contributors. Project being open source can indicate to your colleagues that it's up for grabs. They don't have to ask permission. Tooling, I really recommend a small upfront investment in tooling that will enable you to make really rich documentation. And just because you've got powerful tooling doesn't mean it needs to be more complicated. In the case of our documentation, if somebody wants to make a copy tweak, they don't need to understand Ruby on Rails because they just edit the markdown file, and it's easy. The contribution guides are really essential for getting quality external input and providing resources to contributors. Automation, please don't repeat things, don't ever repeat things, just do it once. Be done with that. And docs like code, take engineering practices and apply it to your documentation, and that will really help accelerate things. Lastly, I'd like to wrap up by saying we are hiring. We're hiring a technical writer. AdamButlerAPItheDocsAmsterdam/team has a bit more information. And if the internet gods are working, 3 minutes ago I just magically tweeted this out. So you can find it on there as well. And thank you very much. That's all